Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. After a disappointing 2021 season, Penn State had a remarkable turnaround in 2022, going 11-2 and winning the Rose Bowl over Utah. The Nittany Lions now come in at number 7 and are way too early top 25, and with loads of talent coming back in 2023, it could end up being a very special year for the Nittany Lions. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today as we break down Penn State's schedule for this upcoming college football season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks, including everything we have on our website, thegridironexpert.com, and everything that's there to help you get through this offseason, because here at the Gridiron Expert, guys, college football never dies. The college football season never ends here at the channel. We have so much content to produce for you guys, so much discussion to be had, so many exclusive offers for you, all down there in the description below. Go check it out and become a part of our GE Nation. So you take a look at Penn State, guys. We mentioned this is a team that's loaded with talent, right? I mean, they lose a couple of key starters, obviously, from the last year that helped them win the Rose Bowl, but Drew Aller comes in at quarterback, a lot of high expectations around him. They have one of the best, if not the best, running back duo in the country in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. They're a team that's expected to have about 7 starters back on defense, a projected 6 back on offense, loads of talent for James Franklin's squad, and a pretty favorable schedule to go along with it. So yes, Penn State, to us, is a top 10 team to start the year, and they are a team that could contend for a Big Ten title and a possible college football playoff berth. So you take a look at the schedule. They open up the year on September 2nd against West Virginia. So not an easy task by any means. Anytime that you have to face a Power 5 opponent outside of your own conference, it's a big deal. It's not a guaranteed easy win. It's going to be a pretty tough game. But Penn State does get the benefit of hosting the Mountaineers. They do take on Delaware after that. And then I do think it's interesting what the schedule did. Penn State plays all 3 of their cross-division games in a row. They play all 3 of their Western Division opponents in a row. They play Illinois, Iowa, and Northwestern. They played Northwestern last year, beat the Wildcats 17-7. Did not play Iowa or Illinois last year, but we have seen some classics between Penn State and those 2 programs. A couple of years ago, we saw the 9 overtime thriller between Illinois and Penn State in Happy Valley. Penn State, unfortunately, on the losing side of that game. Iowa and Penn State, tons of history there. A few years ago, we had a top 4 showdown between the Hawkeyes and the Nittany Lions. We saw the Trace McSorley touchdown as time expired back in, 2016, 2017 with Penn State. So we have seen some great matchups between Iowa and Penn State, Illinois and Penn State. And it's fortunate, if you're Penn State, you're kind of looking at this saying it's a good thing to get Iowa at home. Illinois now is not an easy game by any means. I think in years past, people would overlook the Fighting Illini. Brett Bielema doing a very solid job kind of building them back up and making them somewhat feared in the Big Ten, especially in that wide open West Division. So going to Champaign will not be easy, but you can make an argument that Iowa will be the toughest of those 3 Western Division opponents. Penn State gets them at home in Happy Valley. And I will say right now, I don't think it's been announced yet, but if there's the whiteout game for Penn State, I would imagine would either be against West Virginia, would be against Iowa, or would be against Michigan in November. We'll talk more on that game in a second. My gut says the whiteout game will be against Michigan, but you could make a case that it could be against Iowa or West Virginia. We've seen Penn State have some early season whiteout games in the past. So 3 straight West Division opponents in a row. Thought that was very interesting that the schedule did that. 2 of those 3 on the road, but Iowa arguably the toughest one of the 3. They get their bye week before going into UMass, so it's an unfortunate bye week, right? If you're Penn State, you're looking at that and go, why couldn't we have played Ohio State following our bye week? Why do we need a week of rest to prepare for UMass? In a way, though, if you're Penn State, you're practically hitting 2 weeks of rest, right? Because there's a very good chance that the Nittany Lions will be resting their starters for the majority of that second half, as they are expected to blow out UMass. So bye week, UMass, then Ohio State. That begins the key stretch for Penn State. October 21st through November 11th, those 4 games to me are the toughest and most important games on Penn State's schedule in 2023. And obviously, the 2 bookends are the biggest ones. Ohio State and Michigan. Have to travel to Columbus, but you get to host the Wolverines. The Big Ten East, guys, is a pretty wide open division to an extent. Ohio State and Michigan still going to be the heavy favorites. And right now you can make a case that Michigan will be the favorite as they've won the division the last 2 years. So you've got Michigan in there. something to kind of keep an eye on. You have Ohio State in there. Penn State's right behind them as a legitimate contender. Maryland seems to be on the rise. Absolutely no slouch right now with Michael Locksley. Rutgers is slowly improving. Michigan State should have a bounce-back year, 100%. So, obviously, they play all of their East Division opponents in a row following that UMass game, which I think is interesting. They play all the West teams, and then they play all the East teams. Not really spaced out any. But the top three teams in that division are Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. And Penn State has to face those other two programs in a 4-week stretch. So the Ohio State game, Penn State lost them 44-31 last year. We're hanging with the Buckeyes. Looked like they might be able to pull off the upset in the fourth quarter. Kind of had an epic collapse there. Fell by 13. I have to go to Columbus. But Ohio State dealing with a lot of key new pieces. Yes, they slipped into the playoff last year, but C.J. Stroud is gone. A couple of their top receivers are gone. Defensive players are gone. So it'll be interesting to see how Ohio State handles that and is able to bounce back and contend for another potential playoff berth. So something to kind of watch out for there. It's on the road. But we've seen Penn State take on Ohio State. Like the Iowa game, we have seen a lot of classics between the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions. We expect nothing less this time around. They get to host Indiana, beat them 45-14 last year. Hoosiers still going to, I think, struggle quite a bit in 2023. They then go to Maryland. Bit of a trap game to an extent. Maryland, not an easy game. Right before Michigan, you could see Penn State overlooking Maryland for that Michigan game, but Penn State always seems to just take out their frustrations on the Terrapins. Last year, they beat them 30-0. We've seen years past where they've traveled to Maryland. People have said, watch out, trap game, and Penn State just blows them out of the water. I still don't think, although Maryland seems to be improving, I don't think they're quite yet ready to be on the level of a Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. They might be able to hang with them, but not beat them. So at Maryland, a bit of a trap game considering what's coming up next. The Michigan game is the big one there. Because it's one of those things where if Penn State were to lose to Ohio State but beat Michigan, and then Michigan were to beat Ohio State, then you could possibly create this three-way tie in the Big Ten East and create chaos in the conference. So that's, again, why these two games are so important. They lost to Michigan 41-17 last year. Michigan, of course, went all the way to the college football playoff, where they fell to TCU. But now Penn State gets to host them in Happy Valley. We've seen a lot of great classics between these two in recent years. Typically the home team wins between the Nittany Lions and the Wolverines. Typically the home team wins when Jim Harbaugh and James Franklin have squared off. Not all the time, but that's typically how it's gone. If that's the case, you could bet on a Penn State victory. But of course, we'll predict that here in a few months. And they close out the year with games against Rutgers and Michigan State. Rutgers on senior night beat them 55-10 last year. They go on the road to Michigan State, who they beat by 19 last year, and a Michigan State team that probably has enough to go bowling after a very disappointing 2022, but still not going to be anywhere near the level that they were in 2021. So again, you look at this schedule, guys, it's pretty favorable for Penn State. Looking at it, I really actually think that anything less than a 6-0 start, considering the expectations and the talent that Penn State has and the momentum that they have coming into this year, anything less than a 6-0 start would probably be viewed as a disappointment by Penn State faithful. Obviously, the Illinois game is going to be tough. The Iowa game is going to be tough. But there is a very good chance that Penn State starts 6-0 heading into what could be a top 10 showdown at Ohio State. That begins the key 4-game stretch. Ohio State, Indiana, Maryland, and Michigan. Namely, Ohio State and Michigan, the two biggest games on the schedule. Close out the year with Rutgers and Michigan State, both of which I would assume Penn State would be favored in. But again, no one is ever safe in the world of college football. But this looks like a very special year for Penn State, where they could contend for a Big Ten title, could contend for a playoff berth, but at the very least should be contending for a New Year's Six bowl berth by season's end. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share the videos, and become a part of our GE Nation, because here at the Gridiron Expert, guys, football never dies. The season never ends, and every day gets us one step closer to football returning for all of us. We love the game of college football. We want to talk it with you. We want to debate it with you. We do it 24/7. 365 year-round right here at the channel, and we want you to become a part of that. Become a part of our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.